Good afternoon and welcome to Life Hacks with Mac. I'm excited this afternoon to be interviewing Stephen Carberon, who is an international entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur at that, referred to as a hedonist, a protagonist for peace and unity, and always doing something related to making the world a better place as far as I'm concerned. Stephen's been extremely successful on a global scale with regards to the optical side of the world, and worked with brands like Dolce and Gabbana, collaborated with Calvin Klein, Donna Karan, and many other brands, and has had the wonderful opportunity of working both in the United States, United States, United Kingdom, and Moscow, and now residing in Spain, if I'm correct. Um, just in case you've moved in between all of those. Um,
Absolutely. Even Chile for a little while.
and Chile for a while as well. So a what I would class as a global citizen, and very much working on an international scale, but also a huge presence in the music industry with regards to DJing, both from promoting events, working with some of the biggest DJs that are effectively household names for many people, and DJing yourself, and still doing so. Uh, I know I tune in on the odd occasion as well. Um, and Stephen has been involved in the personal development space since the very early, so 1980, 81, somewhere around.
81, yeah. 81, I went to my first
And
personal development seminar.
wow. And working with uh, various people throughout the personal development space, but being fairly close to a lot of international leaders that you have worked with over the time. Not to go and name drop with many, but I know you've worked with the Tony Robbins Foundation in various guises, been to I don't know how many of their events, supported how many of their delegates over the years, and really had a massive impact in the personal development space. And for me, you've got some exciting stories to share, but you've also been able to be the catalyst to making various different organizations shift and happen, and relationships that you've put together. And for me, I always see how you go out and just see how you can add value to people, and the connections you make have absolutely no boundaries. um, and it's been wonderful to watch that over the years that I've known you. Now, today you've got a fascinating story to share with us, which I want you to give people a little bit of context, because the world that we're living in at the moment has definitely turned things upside down a little, put us out of sorts. It's been overwhelming. It's been extremely challenging for many of us, and I just felt that your story was really on point about survival right now, and having the right mindsets, and being able to just get through all the different challenges that we're facing at the moment. So today's theme of how to survive a life threatening situation, which you're going to tell us all about in a few minutes, but also how you were lost at sea, and comparing that to how many people are feeling right now, where being lost at sea is a pretty good explanation for where most people are right now. And there are going to be some exciting things that you're going to be sharing with us today. So I think some really key takeaways that you can go and action immediately after our chat today. And one of those being the goal mapping side of things, which you're a goal mapping coach. So there'll be a free goal map that you can get out of the session later on. So please have a listen and stay tuned until the end so that you can take that away. We also have how to best visualize, which in today's day and age is going to come in really handy, especially before, if you're trying to figure out how to go and take on a new career, start a new business, go for an interview. So many different places that you can go and apply that. And then for me, which especially right now when things are so tough, and we don't know what tomorrow holds, and the news is full of negativity, and therefore that little voice on the shoulder, that negative voice that keeps, chatting away, and can sometimes really just crush us. And Stephen's going to go through, how do you deal with that little voice? How do you get rid of that little voice? So I'm really excited to learn about that, because I must say there are some days where I sit there and I think, if only that little voice was a physical thing, so I could pop it in the chops, it would be really useful.
You can. It doesn't need
Say
to
that
be,
again.
but you can do exactly that with it.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that then. And then the DAC effect, which I'll let Stephen explain later, but is going to be a key component in making or helping the decision-making process in a lot of things that you do. And potentially even put you up there as the chosen either solution by a client or the chosen person in potentially an interview situation. Then the last one is the power of positivity. And, if anything, I think, Stephen, you ooze positivity. I don't think I've ever, even when you ask how your day's going, no matter what's happening in your world, everything can be falling apart, but you'll always see that little silver lining. And for me, that's been not only beautiful to see, but it's also been a reflection of myself, where I've kind of gone, wow, okay, how can I see the silver lining? And that followed through. So I'm really excited to firstly hear the story, because I know so many people know it. I don't know the full story. So if my face changes and I go, what the heck? I'm really looking forward to understanding that. So, before we go really deep into this, give us just a little bit of, who is Stephen Carberon, and what makes you tick? And then please, I'm looking forward to hearing the story today.
Okay, so who is Stephen Carberon? As you mentioned, I was born in the UK. I lived a large proportion of my life in the UK before moving out to spend some time in Chile. Was looking to live by the beach and got an amazing job offer in Moscow, which was not by the beach, but it was an amazing job offer, and I took it up. I lived 11 years in Moscow. I went there for 2 years. I lived 11 years in Moscow, Russia. Was part of a very successful optical business there. We also, when we sold out, after I'd been there 6.5 years, I opened up the first joint venture company with a international manufacturer. So I had a lot of success with my time in Moscow. Came out of there and moved to Spain with my Russian wife and my child, and this is where we live now. And we live by the beach, which is a great thing. A little bit of more history. So in 2004, just before I moved to Moscow in 2005, but in 2004, I discovered Tony Robbins, or I was introduced to Tony Robbins events. Went on my first UPW. He definitely was a catalyst to changing my, not my way of thinking. And my mum always says this, when I say, well, Tony Robbins changed my life, she always says to me, no, you changed your life. Tony Robbins might have given you some tools and he might have given you some tips, but you were the one who put them into action. And this is really the important thing that I know about my life, and I would suggest to everyone about their lives is, yes, we have mentors. Yes, we have people who guide us. But remember, it's only you who can do something about it. It's only what you do, the actions you take, that will determine whether you're going to get success out of those tools or not. If you don't take action with them, you might know everything. There's a lot of people who know lots of different things and don't use them, and therefore they don't get anywhere. And there's other people who maybe know one or two things, and they use them, they put them into use, and they focus on it, and you see them getting massive success. So my big advice to people is learn what you learn, but put it into action, and that's when you'll get results.
100% agree with you on that one.
So yeah, I've a little story that happened to me. I mean, it's an interesting story, and I really found that I talked about it a bit when it happened, and I always remember saying to my friend who it happened with, and I'll explain that a little bit more, that, you know, this is a story that we'll laugh about in the future, and you'll understand why that was said, because at the time it wasn't necessarily something to laugh about. But it's become so prevalent right now. It fits in with where we are, as you say, lost at sea. Most people are feeling lost at sea. Maybe they're feeling a bit worse. Maybe they're feeling like they're up shit's creek without a paddle. You know, really, some people are desperate at the moment, and you know, everything's falling apart, and they're reading the news, they're listening to social media, they're following all the instructions, and they're saying, where is this going? And I'm going to give you a little hint at how you maybe can get around that, and how you can deal with it, how I dealt with it in actually what was a life-threatening situation. So let's go back to 2016, summer of 2016, and I was invited by a very good friend of mine, guy called Darren. He had a boat down in the south of France, and he invited me to come down. I was working with him at the time. He said, come down for a couple of days. We can talk about work, have a nice relaxing time out in the Mediterranean, go up and down the French Riviera. Sounds really luxurious and lovely. It was. And you know, you don't turn down offers like that. They don't come around very many times. So I flew down to Nice. He picked me up from there. We went and spent a lovely evening in Monaco. You know, it was lovely. It was really beautiful. And the next morning we're having breakfast, and we said, you know what, it would be nice to go to Saint-Tropez for lunch. You know, this is the life. You know, you're in Monaco, you've got a boat. It's a 2.5-hour drive to Saint-Tropez, and why not? So, you know, so we finished breakfast, we got on the boat, got everything checked out, and off we headed. And we're going along, and it's just, I don't know, have you been to the south of France? And
I have. It's absolutely exquisite. I've actually walked all the way along the coast to Monaco, and the yachts and the views are just exquisite.
Yeah, and when you're on a boat, it's even better, because you've got, you know, you just see all these, you know, the boats sitting in the bays, and then you've got the houses going up, you know, the villas going up, almost like they're looking out over their boats just to check that they're all there still in the morning. It's beautiful, the coves and the beaches and everything. So there we are, we're moving along at a fair speed, and I've decided to get a better view. So I've gone up to the front of the boat, and as I've gone up above the windshield, my cap's gone off. And it's like, yeah, it's a €10 cap, doesn't really matter. But my friend Darren, he slams, well, cuts the engines, there's no brakes on the boat, cuts the engines and stops and says, come on, we'll go and get your hat. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. You know, I'm just thinking, not really that important, but let's do it. You know, you stop. So he says, pop down to the back of the boat, grab that. There's the stick that you pull in the ropes when you come into moor, that you pull the ropes in. You grab that, it's got a hook on the end. And you know, when we get nearby, if we see your cat, you can lean over and you can hook your cat back in. Perfect. So I go to the back of the boat, and we turn around and we're going along. And I decide that actually, if I go down onto the bathing platform right at the back, I'm going to be nearer the water, and I'm going to get a better view. And when it's there, I'll be closer to grab it. So I do what any sensible person know. what I did. So there's steps on one side to go down, and I decide that I'll go over the engine where there's one step, and I'll go down that way. So I'm holding onto the railing. I've got a pole in my other hand. I take a step down onto the step, and as I take that step down, the boat hits a bump. I go up into the air, and I'm hanging onto the rail, and I'm swinging around. And I realize that if I carry on swinging around, I'm going to hit the side of the boat, maybe knock myself out, whatever. So it's like that split second. It's like, okay, what do? I let go, because I'm going to be able to call Darren, and he'll stop the boat, and it'll be fine. So I just let go, and off I go, and I'm in the Mediterranean. I go down and into the sea, and I come up, and my glasses have come off, and I like, first bit of good fortune, I whip my hand around, and the glasses just appear in my hand. I put them back on just in time to see the boat disappear over the horizon.
So he didn't stop, he just carried on going?
Darren didn't know. He had the music playing. I was on the back of the boat. He was driving, obviously keeping an eye on where he was going, and he disappeared. That was it. He was gone. He was over the horizon, didn't see him, and I'm in the sea, and I don't have a life jacket on or anything. Another silly move, you know. But there I am. I'm in my swim trunks, my glasses, my metal stick, and that's it. And I look to the coast, and I think,
still held onto the stick.
Well, it was in my hand. Yeah, you know, this was sort of at a stage I'm thinking, why? But we'll get on to that. So anyway, I look to the coast and I think, okay, that's probably looks around about 3, 4, maybe 5 kilometers, which means it's probably further. I have no idea, but probably too far to swim. And I stop and I think, okay. So the first thing I do, like we all would, is I curse myself. I call myself a lot of profanities. I like, you know, I'm not even going to go into them here, but you know, I was not happy, and I didn't think the highest of myself at that particular
Can I
moment.
ask a question?
Yes.
Did you look for the cap while you were submerged in the water?
The cap was the furthest thing from my mind. Literally. Now I was thinking of other things. So, and, you know, so what I realized is that I'm in the sea and the boat's disappeared. And I basically got 3 choices. I realized at this time I had 3 choices of how to react. So I have choice 1. I could think, get into a fight or flight, do everything I could to either swim to the shore or start yelling and screaming and flapping about or whatever. And well, after a couple of minutes, I'd probably lose energy and I'd sink and I'd drown. Option 2, I could do nothing. I could just go, you know what? I'm in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea and I'm going to die. And I could just let it go and say, you know what? Let's just let it all go. And I could drown. And then I had option 3. And option 3, which I realized because, as you said, having been on Tony Robbins and had a lot of his positive thinking ways and my own positivity, I realized that the best way around this would be to start thinking about positive, accept where I was, accept the situation that I was in, and accept that there was nothing I could actually do about it. I couldn't get back on the boat because the boat wasn't there. I couldn't not go to the back of the boat because I'd already done that. Whatever had happened had happened. The situation was there. So what I couldn't change, there was no point in focusing on. Yeah, I had a little think about, are there sharks in the Mediterranean? I even caught myself going, how, you know, to the very extreme, and then saying this till I was laughing at myself and saying, okay, now you're being silly. You've already been really silly, but now you're being silly. It's like, let's get back to reality.
It's the first thing that crossed my mind.
Yeah, and yeah, because there aren't sharks in the Med. Well, at least I convinced myself that there aren't at that time. So it's like, you know, then I realized that I need to start thinking about positive outcomes. What positive can happen? So the first thing you mentioned it, I had this stick in my hand. You know, what good is this stick? But what I did realize is that, you know, when you're, let me just get down here, that's about that much out of the water and the waves are lapping like this. And, you know, you're not very visible in the sea. You know, it's not, you know, so I suddenly realized that maybe this stick would be useful if, or as I thought, when Darren comes back to find me, if he's not quite on course, the stick is going to make me much more visible. So, okay, although it's not the most useful thing at the moment, I kept hold of it just in case. And I then started looking around and thinking, okay, what are my other options? What other positives are there about? And I saw there were 2 sailing boats, and they were sort of heading my direction. They were coming, they weren't heading towards me, but they were this direction. So I thought, okay, what I can do is I can sort of shift myself. I don't want to shift too much because obviously Darren's going to come back looking for me where I am when he comes back. But you know, if I need to, if they get close enough, they can hear me because they've not got any engines. It's going to be much quieter, and I can start flashing around, and maybe they'll pick me up. They're a second option. And I'm looking at other things, and I'm really sort of thinking at this time, okay, you know, just whatever you do, stop thinking about the fact, you know, you're not going to die. I really sort of decided, focus on, you know, focus on survival and that you're going to survive, because then you've got more chance of surviving. If I focus on the fact that I'm going to die, I've got more chance that I'll just let myself die. And it's, you know, I really believe this. I think we have this in many cases. I mean, you hear the stories of people who are in hospitals and their doctor tells them they have 1 week to live and 1 week later they die. That's because they've convinced themselves they're going to die. So, you know, don't ever let that happen. Focus on the positive. And I really did focus on the positive.
So how long were you out at sea by this time?
I was there probably around about somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. It seemed, it actually was a lifetime.
Must have seemed like an eternity though.
It was a lifetime. really. It could have been, because if I'd have drowned, that would have been my life. So it was a lifetime. But you know, it was about 10 or 15 minutes. And about 10 or 15 minutes later, after I sort of was still in this position of just keeping myself afloat and saying, okay, I just need to hang on for as long as is necessary. And I know that I can probably stay in the water for a couple of hours. It's not going to, it's the Mediterranean in August. It's not cold, fortunately. So, you know, there was not, I wasn't going to get hypothermia or anything like that. But I knew I was in a precarious situation, but it was being focused on the positive. And sure enough, eventually I suddenly see the boat come over the horizon. And it's not quite heading in my direction, but it's heading towards me. So I get stuck. Okay, now's the time. Now I use my energy, because I've been conserving energy and keeping myself, you know, because I said the more I conserve my energy, the more chance I've got of staying afloat for much longer. Yeah. Don't thrash around. Don't get into any of these sort of yelling or whatever. But now's the time. Now's the time to use the energy. So I started waving the stick, and sure enough, the boat turned around, or turned towards me, and eventually came alongside me, and I climbed back on the boat. And to be honest, Darren was probably maybe even more stressed than I was. You know, his attitude, as he said, you know, he didn't even know if I was alive. I knew I was alive. I didn't know if he was coming back, but I knew I was alive. He wasn't sure. Maybe I'd hit the side of the boat. All he knew was at some point he turned around and I wasn't there anymore. He'd gone running down into the galley to see if I was in the toilet or something, you know, knowing I hadn't passed him. But, you know, you just think,
yeah, absolutely,
the worst couldn't have happened.
Wow.
You know, and then realizing when he did that I had fallen in. So, you know, I got back on the boat. We actually did end up making it to Santa Fe for lunch. And when we're sitting there, and we're talking about this story and sort of laughing about it, and certainly laughing at the fact that, you know, in years to come, this is going to be one of our funny stories together. At that time, he was still sort of going, oh my God, I can't believe that, you know, I really thought I killed my best friend and everything. And the guys on the next table, there were two Scottish couples sitting on the next table, and they said, we've got to interrupt you. Is this story true? We said, so we explained it quickly to them again. And they said, you are so lucky to be alive. And up until then, I hadn't realized, till they said maybe 70% of people who go man overboard don't make it. Especially if you've not got a life jacket or anything. So
that's the big thing that kind of stands out for me, because as a I must say ex-surfer, because if I had to climb on a surfboard right now, I'd be a submarine. But back in the day when I used to surf, I experienced and watched so many people that had come off a surfboard, and because they were trying to be clever, they didn't have the leash on their leg, or for some reason, and people that ended up drowning 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes after losing their surfboard, or falling off a board, or falling off the back of a jet ski or a local boat, where they weren't wearing a life jacket because they were just, you know, trying to play hero. And I know from a personal experience where I was out at sea many years ago with a friend of mine who was teaching us how to dive in the coral and in the kelp in South Africa. But because of the depth, I developed cramps in both legs. And that got me, and that was only maybe 5, 6 minutes after we'd gone in, and there's no way to hold on. And, you know, in your situation, anything could have happened in literally a few minutes, because it's that mindset of keeping that peace inside. And I mean, I'm feeling my heart race now, thinking the anxiety, the panic, because that's a natural kind of go-to place for so many people. And that's the difference between living and dying in these situations.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you keep that kind of calm and stillness?
Well, it was a conscious decision. It was, you know, it was an absolute realization that if I acted in any other way, if I got into a panic, I was going to, it would be detrimental to the chance of my survival. And of course, you know, at the time, I didn't know whether I would survive or not. I mean, it certainly crossed my mind, but, you know, as soon as it crossed my mind, I refocused and said, okay, if I focus on that I'm not going to survive, if I focus on the precarious situation I'm in, then it will become more precarious, because I'm a great believer, and Tony Robbins talks about, you know, what you focus on is what you get, you know, so
Yeah.
be aware of what you're focusing on. So I was very, very focused on survival. I was focused on the fact that I used my conscious self to focus all of me on the fact that this was going to be okay. I'd had the thoughts that it wasn't going to be okay, and obviously I understood that I was in a very precarious situation. This is why I liken it to what we're in now. We all know, you know, people have lost their business maybe, or losing their business. We've got people in very, very bad situations at the moment. But if they focus on the fact that that's where they are and that's where they're going to be, and nothing out, no way of getting out, then there'll be no way of getting out. Whereas if they focus on the fact that, yes, this is going to finish one way or another, this is going to finish at some point, and we're all going to have to make moves to where we're going to go and make a decision of what we want to do. And if you start focusing on those right decisions, and I've been doing it myself, you know, I've really, actually, I've got to say, I'm not saying this is a great period, but from my own personal point of view, I built great networking opportunities. I've started a business with a couple of girls who are in the UK, one in Scotland, one in London. Would never have happened a year ago. These things have been able to happen because, you know, because of the situation we're in. So start focusing on, okay, well, what can happen in the current situation? What can I do? And I think if we get on to one of those points that I know you've been looking forward to hearing about, and this is the little voice that's there. How do you shut the little voice up? And it's something that I hadn't learned at the time, although I realized that I do things. And it's a lot of times you learn things after you actually doing it. I don't know if you have this in life. I mean, I find a lot of things that, you know, I've been practicing something, and then one day someone tells me why that thing that I've been practicing works for me, you know, like smiling at myself in the mirror in the morning and saying, what a great day I'm going to have. And then Tony Robbins tells you it's a great way to do these affirmations in the morning and sort of smile and say what a great day is going to be. You know, it's set yourself up properly. I was doing it before and didn't realize why it was working. So last year I was on a meditation group with Ono Academy, and Krishnaji, who's one of the very, very learned guy, is one of my mentors, and he was talking about and he put it into a very, very nice analogy. So imagine this little voice is like a little bird, and you've got the big bird. So the little bird, and I even took it a step further. So I said, okay, take that little bird. It's like the little what are they called? The little forgot what they're called now. The little canary cage. Yeah. Chirping away, running, flying it backwards and forwards, non-stop chirping, making lots and lots of noise all the time, all the noise. And the big bird is the owl.
The wise owl.
The wise owl that just sits there and observes what's going on and sees everything. And it only does or uses its energy when it wants to get food. When it sees its prey, it's not moved. It's just like twisted its head, and then it sees something, and it just waits for the right moment, and then it swoops and it gets its prey and it comes back up. But all the while, it's just watching. And we call it a wise owl because it is wise. It knows when to use its energy. And the same way that I did, I realized that I did exactly that. I had the little canary chirping, telling me what a fool I was, all these sort of things, telling me about the sharks and all these things. And I said, you know what? I can be listening to that, or I can take an alternative view, which is to look at options, be calm, bring myself, I do meditation, so bring myself into not a total meditative state, but into a calm state and into a conscious state of awareness of this is the situation and this is what I need to do to have the best chance of survival. And this is something that I practice now. You know, if you want to survive where we are now, take that advice. Stop listening to the little bird that's telling you, you know, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You know, these people say it's good, these people say it's bad. Go out, don't go out. Have 5 people in your house or have 10 people. All these different messages that are very confusing at the moment. We're getting, you know, you just read it. I'm telling you, go back to March and read all the different bits of information we've got, and there's so much contradictory information coming out that if you listen to the information, you'll just be confused and making poor decisions. Because even if you make a decision on what we're being told today, that is contrary to the decision you made last week, and then you start doubting what you did last week and thinking, well, maybe this is wrong. And, you know, before you know it, you're doubting everything you do, and you're negating everything you do. Whereas if we step into the observer, we just watch what's going on, we make the right choices based on as much knowledge as we can get, not from the mass media, but, you know, do a little bit of your own research. But don't even follow that too much. Do what feels good for you. You know, do what feels healthy for you, because I guarantee if your immune system is built up, not just your health immune system, but your brain, your mental immune system as well, because this is also suffering. A lot of people are suffering mental health issues, even though they might not be big ones, that their mental health is being affected by all of this. We don't know what we're doing. Having the calm will give us much more chance to make good decisions, know when to act, know what to do, when to use our energy, how to use it in the best way, see when opportunities come along so that we can take hold of them. You know, you're talking about people getting jobs and moving careers, shifting careers, maybe, you know, taking up a new career, deciding something that's going to work for them going into the future. This is now the time that you know, we need to be very, very slow and focused and just observe what's going on and act at the right time.
So, you know, take me through it mentally for somebody who may be, I guess, having both those voices going on. The one is louder than the other, and they, you know, it's creating a certain amount of anxiety and stress, obviously. What is your process, or what would you say to that person? Because sometimes it's easier to say, okay, well, don't listen to their voice than not. But because it's sometimes so loud, and therefore we don't progress, when, you know, it could be such a small little obstacle in our way, but because of this voice, it feels like it's so overwhelming and the world's coming to an end. And then finally, when we get that voice quietened and we can listen to the wise owl, as you put it, and we just observe and we remove ourselves from the situation, we kind of realize, all I actually have to do is take a tiny step forward. And sometimes that's all it takes. What is your process? What is your suggestion if somebody's in that busy canary voice going mental situation?
Okay, I think there's several things I do. I mean, I do, as I mentioned, I do meditation, and meditation is a great thing to do because it's a very calming. It's a great way to calm the voices and calm. And don't worry if you're just starting, or people do meditation and you say, well, yeah, but that voice becomes louder because all I'm doing is now not focusing on anything else. That's okay. Just accept it. And I suppose the analogy I'd say is, have you ever been in a pub? And I'm talking about before this year, when they were busy and noisy and you're with friends and you're chatting, there's lots and lots of noise going on all around you. But because you're focused on your friend, you can still hear what they're saying, even though the cacophony of noise around you is possibly louder, and it's certainly all the chatter. So I suppose it's about not what you hear, but what you listen to. So choose what you're listening to, choose where you're focusing your mind as well as everything else. So, you know, what are the stories you're listening to? What are you reading? Are you reading social media all the time and allowing even the friends who you love dearly who are saying this is right or this is right? Because let me tell you, whichever side they're on, the pro-mask and anti-mask, the pro-vax or anti-vax, whatever it is, it's still just noise. And it's still, if you focus on either of it, you're going to go down the wormhole. So what you need to do is just pull back a little bit, watch what's going on, make the best decisions for yourself, and look for something else. Look for an alternative to that noise. Find a friend, or find actually a mutual friend of ours, Carl Pearsall. He mentioned, I think it was John DeMartini he was speaking to, or somebody like that he was speaking to when this all started up. And they said, find something to be focused on and work on, and forget about what's going on. Because what you can't change, You can't change what's going on around you. You can't do anything about. But if you find something to be very focused on and stick with that and stay focused and make sure it's a positive focus, what you'll find is actually, as I say, it's like that, your friend in the pub, you'll hear what they say and you won't hear the rest of the noise around you.
And I'm trying to think of the words exactly how you put that, but it was so important with regards to focus on what you hear, not what they say. Is that what you?
No, so we're hearing it all. It's what you choose to listen to.
That's
because there's in English language, not every language has this difference between hearing and listening. But
yeah,
when we listen, we actually take it in. We hear everything. There's noise around us. So it's the same with vision. You know what you see, what we see and what we actually focus on. And as you know, what you focus on is what you get. So if you're focused on all the negativity going on in the social media, and it doesn't, as I say, it doesn't matter which side you're on, it's still negative because they're all calling each other out. If you're focused on that, you've got that negative focus, and it will bring you down. It will affect your mentality. It will affect your spirituality. It will affect everything about how you're moving forward. Whereas if you can pull away from that and back off a little bit and say, okay, I know it's going on, so I'm going to spend less time on social media. I'm going to maybe switch from Facebook to LinkedIn because at least there most people are talking about business and they're telling people about their successes and opportunities. So, if you've got to get on your computer and do an hour of social media, go onto LinkedIn or Telegram or somewhere where it's a little bit more motivating and stimulating, and not just it was lovely when we used to get the pictures of people's cats maybe and dinner that I just had. At least that didn't bring you down. I mean, it's like but nowadays really Facebook, to be honest, it's the prime example. Is just 90% of what you're going to read on there is not good for you. It's become the newspaper, like, I don't want to name names, but the newspapers, the tabloids that I'm talking about, that just have these splash on headlines that you don't want to read because it's not going to be beneficial to you. Facebook has become that. It's become the tabloid of social media, and therefore spend less time on there and find better quality social media if you have to do social media. Find better quality people to talk to. Do a Zoom call with someone that is going to be steering you away from that and not talking like that. Spend a bit of time in nature. Spend a bit of time focused on your health. Read up about how you can boost your immunity, so it gives you a bit of a positive vibe, and then follow that follow that lead. Eat a bit more healthily, do a bit more exercise. We're not getting this information, to be honest. We're not getting it from our governments. We're not getting it from our social media. It's sort of being splashed on there, but even that's, to an extent, a lot of social media is blankly, it's taking away and restricting what we see of it. But it is good for us. It won't stop it, but it'll give you much better chance. In other words, it's like a little bit like when I was in the water in the Mediterranean. I couldn't magic myself out of there, but by being focused on the right things, I had a much better chance of surviving until someone got me out of there.
And that, I think, like everything right now, focusing on the worst that can happen. It's that old, false evidence appearing real. That we tend to focus on. And one of the things that I really like about what you said is the fact that we have a choice on how we're going to react and how we respond to the situation, and that is really, really key. I guess I'd like to go on to one of the other points that you spoke about, because having that voice and then choosing how you're going to respond. You spoke about visualization, and for me, this is something that's really, really powerful, and probably very underutilized for a lot of people. Take us through that and how that can be really empowering as such.
Yeah, I mean, with visualization, I suppose it started becoming more and more popular. The first real place that we started seen a lot of success with visualization is in sport. And we know that, more and more that sports people, that Usain Bolt will run his 100 meters race over and over in his head before he ever gets on the track. So that doesn't mean to say if he doesn't practice and doesn't do his fitness and he doesn't have his natural ability and those great long legs, etc., that he needs those attributes as well. But there's sometimes, and it's it comes down to the fact that if you visualize things, if you go through it in your head to the extent that it becomes true in your head, then it becomes true in your life. So one of the things that I learned with goal mapping that we do with visualization, it's something, again, it's one of these things that I was using before I learned it in goal mapping, and then I realized how it works in goal mapping. So when we visualize something, I've always said, when you visualize, it's really important to get right in there, feel the emotions, understand it 100%, that, put color in there. Sometimes we visualize and we say, okay, you're going to visualize your job. I mean, I've used this actually. I did a whole talk on visualization a few years ago, and one of the things I was talking about was if you want to pass an interview, a job interview, think about, visualize it beforehand. Visualize succeeding and getting the job. So visualize being in the job. What's the job like? Visualize every detail of what do you do every day in the job. Imagine your emotions of being successful in that job. If you start doing that and you start putting this in your head, you imagine when you go to the interview, you're telling the guy how you're doing the job because you've already done it in your head. And then the person who's doing the interview is going, wow, this is the candidate. This guy knows not only the job, but they know how they're going to succeed in the job. They've already, and you'll be coming across as a successful candidate and a success in the job, not just succeeding in the interview, but succeeding in the job. Imagine how much better you're going to be than someone who walks in there, like most of the people who walk into an interview, scared stiff. They're not even going to get past the first couple of sentences. Am I going to get my name right? It's like, so yeah. So if you take, and this is really the important thing about visualization, is take it to the next step, take it to total success. And this is something that I learned in goal mapping. When we do goal mapping, we set our goals in the positive, present, and personal. In other words, you've already achieved what you want to achieve. You're already there. So as I say, in the job interview scenario, you've already got the job and you're already a success at the job. So when you speak in that way, you're going to come across in a far more confident. And let's face it, when you're confident in an interview, you've got more chance of getting through it.
I find that quite interesting because from personal experience as well, when you're visualizing and you've put yourself in that position, it changes the whole tone of the interview itself, because ultimately it's almost like you're putting the person who's doing the interview, you're questioning them to see whether this is going to be a fit for you, because you've visualized what it is that you are expecting. You've visualized what you want for your life, and what is going to be a fit for you. And therefore, when you go into that interview, if it doesn't resonate and tick all those boxes, then it's almost like you can sit there and go, okay, I've gone through the interview, but it's my choice to not proceed with this because it doesn't resonate with me. This is not what I visualized. And just from the words that you were speaking there, I was sitting there thinking, okay, so if I walk into something and it's not what I visualized, then it's clearly not a fit for what I'm looking for. And sometimes that can be a lot easier, especially in the current circumstances where, yes, it is tough. And, a lot of people will take a job for a job's sake. But the reality is that and I know this from experience, if you step into a position that you take purely out of necessity, it's not long after that you end up having to look for another job anyway. Because it's not the alignment isn't there. It's not congruent with your vision and who you are. So I think a really important and quite a powerful exercise for people to go and do, to know what that vision looks like, and really break it down and get really vivid. As you say, think about the colors, think about how you would be doing the job. And if that doesn't resonate, then clearly you don't have a fit. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond even that, as I said, get emotional about it. What are the emotions you're going to feel? Celebrating something. We have to remember that the mind works in a very funny way. The mind doesn't know the difference between now and then. It doesn't know the difference between certain things. So when you actually convince the mind that something's happened or that something's real, it wants to be right. Your mind will go out of its way. And if for those who believe in spiritual stuff, let's face it, there's a universe out there and everything exists in the universe. So your next job exists in the universe. It's already there. Now, if you're going to find that job, you need to start imagining what it is, imagining doing it correctly, because then the mind makes it happen. And the mind really doesn't like to be wrong. If we convince ourselves of something, we usually the mind will do everything in its power to make that right, because it doesn't like to be proven wrong. You convince yourself you can lose weight. I mean, many people, if they want to lose weight or something, they sort of maybe go into a diet saying, yeah, I'm going to lose that weight, but I know 6 months later I'll put the weight back on. So what are you telling your mind? You're telling your mind, okay, I'm going to lose the weight, and 6 months later I'm going to put the weight back on. And it will do that. So, it's really important so this is to say, if you can get into the positive, present and personal, so you tell your mind exactly where you are in the future, what you have in the future, and who you are in the future. And by telling your mind that over and over again, what happens at first, it's a thought, it becomes an idea, it becomes a belief. When it's belief, you start creating habits that make it happen.
Yeah.
The mind will start finding ways to start putting you in a position where that's going. So, for example, if it's about getting a new job nowadays, if you really believe you're going to get a great job, you'll start seeing interviews and opportunities for that particular job coming up. You've already imagined you're in that job. You already imagine you're successful in that.
Absolutely.
Job. You'll start to notice, or you'll speak to people because you know what you want to do. So, you might be speaking to someone in a networking meeting and you say, you know what? And you'd be surprised how many people know someone who can help you, or are the person who can help you. So when you say, I really do imagine myself doing, whatever it is, becoming whatever it might be that you want to become, you start talking about it, and they say, you know what, I spoke to someone the other day, they're looking for someone just like you.
Absolutely.
If you weren't already imagining it and therefore being able to talk about it as if it was real, why would they have said, oh, I know someone who's looking for someone just like you, if they didn't know what you were thinking? So it's
speaking it into existence as such.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's
so taking that into consideration, the power of visualization, dealing with that little voice, the one of the other points that you referred to was the DAC effect, and I think that would be a nice kind of intro into how effective and how that can be used in these type of scenarios, whether it be you launching your own business, running your own business, working with clients, or going for interviews. Could you take us through the DAC effect?
Yeah, so the DAC effect is something that, again, came out of goal mapping and something that we use there, but it's something, again, that I understand and use, and lots of people do. So DAC stands for drive, attitude, and confidence. So if you take a group of 5 people and they all get the same job, so that you're an employer and you've employed 5 people to do the same job, and they've all got the same skill set, they've all got the same knowledge, because you've interviewed them, you know that they meet, they've got their whatever it is degree, and they've got their X amount of experience in the field, etc. They all know the same things, but it's been proven many times in lots of different research that of those 5 people, you're most likely to get one who's going to excel. They're going to be the guy who gets, ends up the manager. They end up moving through the different levels at the business or whatever. You're going to get 3 who are going to always stay in that same job. They're going to be very good at the job, and they're going to survive and carry on. And there's going to be one who drops out. There's going to be one who fails. Now, they all had the same skills. They all had the same knowledge when they came along. They're all just as capable as each other. But the difference between them is this DAC, The fact that, one of them, how they get on with people, how do they network, how do they deal with situations, what's their drive, do they really sort of see that they want to get somewhere, have they got this sort of vision that they want to be the best at their job and they've got the real drive to make it happen. What's their attitude like towards what they're doing? Is their attitude positive? Do they feel like they're going to be a success? Do they, are they always listening? Are they always sort of taking in what they're being told? Are they sort of making that little bit of extra effort to be the one who's succeeding all the time? And how confident are they? Yeah, because again, confidence is half the battle. If you go into something thinking, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I mean, Henry Ford, he had this great expression came from Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah. And
it's so often that way.
it is, because it's so powerful. I mean, if you liken it to, anybody that you deal with in life, when I'm just trying to think as an example, if you went to a solicitor and they, you asked them a question and their response was, well, and this would influence an outcome that you were looking for, and you asked them a straightforward question, and their response was, I think it may be, or I'm not sure, but if any form of lack of confidence, if there's not a certainty to it and that confidence, will that be the solicitor you're going to be doing business with? And that's, I guess, for me, a perfect example of what you're saying there with the DAC effect of, if you come across with that confidence and you have the right attitude and you've got that drive, then the likelihood of success is much higher than if I come in and I'll give it a go. I'm not sure, maybe, and I turn up late, just so that I can, at least tick the box. Then you're not coming with the right spirit and intentions, and the mindset is already at a, unless everybody else in the line gets eradicated and you're the only one left, there's a very little chance that you're going to be successful. It's when you put it down to those three little letters, it's so important to have those three, I guess, ducks in a row, as they put it.
Yeah, and certainty breeds certainty, and doubt breeds doubt.
Yeah.
If there's someone doubting, then you start to think of all your doubts and things. So it's the same with the mind. If your mind is doubting, then you consciously start doubting yourself and looking for the negatives. Whereas if you go in with a confidence and a certainty that you can do something, even if there are doubts, like just quieten the doubts. Because 9 times out of 10, you're not going for a job interview because you don't believe you're good enough for the job. You might think there's some areas that, where if you want to, I can look at when I went to Russia and worked there. I was on the edge of my comfort zone. I was going to Russia. I didn't know anything about working in totally different culture. I was working in a business. I was product director, and I was working for a company that had 12 stores, and they were looking to grow. And the maximum I'd been working was a company with 8 stores, so it was at the top end of what I've already been working on. But I was confident I could do it, and I was certainly confident that anything I didn't know at the time I could learn very quickly. So the fact is that I got a load of other things thrown at me that made it even more difficult. But because I was confident, and my CEO even said to me one day, he pulled me in a couple of years into the job, and he said, you know what, after about 6 months, you were this close to going home. And it was only that because we knew you were out of your depth. We knew there were things going on that you weren't in control of, but we saw your confidence in the fact that you knew you could learn and you would work hard and you were doing everything in your power to get to speed, and you were totally sure that you could do it. And that confidence and assuredness that you had gave us the confidence in sticking with you, and you did it. And I stayed on for 6.5 years there, and we sold out with 87 stores, and I'm still very, very good friends with my ex-boss, and continue to sort of, talk about that job as being possibly the best move I ever did. And it could have been a nightmare, but it was my confidence that took me through and got me past a lot of obstacles, and a lot of big obstacles and tell you, moving to Russia was not the easiest thing in the world.
Well, I could well imagine, just with the, you've got the language barrier, you've got different culture, you've got different mindsets, and surviving and doing that, and coming back out with the accolades and the success that you did is evidence in itself that having that right mindset and the drive and the attitude makes such a big difference.
Absolutely.
Take me through, just to wrap up, before we kind of finish off, goal mapping. If you could explain goal mapping in kind of a minute or less, to give people an idea of how, what it is and how powerful that can be.
Yeah, sure. So goal mapping, as I said, I actually discovered it on an Anthony Robbins course, Date with Destiny, which is one of his top seminars to go on. And it's basically where there's a lot of goal setting systems in the world. And with goal mapping, what you do is you have pictures and words, and you bring them together. And it's a very sort of set out, it's all online now, which is great, but it's a very, very fixed, nice, logical set towards it. But the reason why pictures and words work, so I'm going to give you an example. So if I ask you to think of a beach, okay, you've got it in your head, beach? I
do indeed.
Okay, is it the word B-E-A-C-H, the letters B-E-A-C-H?
That came very, very close second. Sand and the sunshine.
You're right, the sand and the sunshine. And most people do. There are some, I'll be honest, there are some people who don't have that pictorial thinking, but the majority of us will think about a beach and they'll have the sand and the sunshine and the sea, and maybe some nice palm trees or whatever, or a deck chair, or, it all depends where you're from. But okay, so now if I say, now think of your picture.
Yeah.
Okay, just think of the picture. What does it say to you? Does it just say beach, or could it be holiday, relaxation, seaside?
I think it's a bit of everything. It's like bliss.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
It becomes a bit ambiguous, basically. So when you have a picture without the word, or the word without the picture, they can be ambiguous, can be anything. When you bring, now if I say take your picture and put
could be
word underneath it, then is it very obvious what it is?
Correct.
Absolute. With absolute certainty. Yeah. So if you want to, so that when you're setting goals, this is how goal mapping works. So you do it with a picture and an affirmation, and that gives you absolute certainty about your goal. And when you give your brain absolute certainty, and we do it, as I say, in the present, personal and positive, so you already have these things. When you're starting giving that message to the brain, it creates a pathway, a neural pathway within the brain that becomes very, very positive, and starts to create, as like before, it goes from an idea, it starts as a thought, becomes an idea, becomes a belief, becomes a reality in your mind. And when it's a reality in your mind, you start giving all your energy to making it a reality in your lifetime. And and again, you have time factors, you have it's not just one or two thoughts, it's quite well laid out. It's something you can do online, so you can go online yourself, and I don't know if you've got the you can put up something to show where they can go, but it's basically
I'll put all the links and the description and everything afterwards as well. Yeah, absolutely.
So, it's something that people can go on there and they can do it themselves. They can do a goal map for themselves. There's lots of videos on there that you can see. Brian Main, who invented goal mapping, has become a very, very close friend of mine. I think you know Brian. He's an amazing guy. So I was very fortunate that when although I discovered goal mapping many years before I met Brian, and I had my 10-year goal map that came true after 10 years, I discovered on its 10th, the virtually 10th anniversary, and it was all about living by the sea and having lots of material things, and I pretty well had them 10 years later. And then I discovered Brian, and I met with Brian. I did a one-day seminar, like his one-day workshop with him, and I loved the goal mapping. I loved what it was all about. I loved it that much that I decided that I wanted to learn it and teach it. And I think, you know, I'm a great believer in when you start to teach something, you learn it better. The more the more you teach people, if you get to a level of teaching, you increase your level of learning. So there's actually a Latin expression, by teaching I learn. So I can't remember what it is in Latin, but there is actually an expression here, but by teaching you learn. And it's so true. So when I discovered it and I really loved it, I decided I wanted to learn it and I wanted to teach it and share it. So I spoke to Brian, and he took me on very kindly as one of his last personal people that he coached, like individual coaching. So I got coached by the master, if you like, and now I am also a master coach myself. So I've gone right through the practitioner level to master coach level, and I'm teaching it and sharing it with others who are getting massive success out of it. So
fantastic. Okay,
I see success in my own life, but I see success in other people's life, which is amazing.
I think it's really vital that people, you know, just take the time to go and have a look and you know, click on the links, go and check it out. And you know, do a little bit of research into this. It's something that I did at the beginning of this year before lockdown, and ironically, had it not been for having that clear path, those pictures, those words, and understanding through all the things we spoke about today, you know, the visualization as well, how that's going to look, how we're going to feel. It has given me clarity, but also it's made things easier with regards to making certain decisions as you're going along in life. So really, really important to go and have a look. Click on the links in the description of this video, and we'll also be, you know, giving you Stephen's details in the description as well as on the screen. So if you have a look on the screen today, there's a you know, very simple way of contacting Stephen. Stephen, you know, is there anything else that you want to share, or any other ways people can contact or reach out or connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, so if you know, people want to contact me, I'm on LinkedIn. You've got my email address. I've got just up there, right in the corner there. So people can write to me there. You'll share the goal mapping page that will go through my affiliate page. So I'm very happy for people to do goal maps on their own. But as I've found in life, and I think most successful people will tell you, if you get a coach, you do things better. So they can contact me, they can pick me, choose me as a coach, they can go through the other coaches in there. There's quite a lot of coaches if they feel more aligned with somebody else. But I would recommend to get a coach if you can, to help you get the best results out of it. For me, as I say, you can contact me there, you can contact me on LinkedIn. I am actually, if you Google the name Stephen Carl-Barron, I am unique. I am the only Stephen Carl-Barron in the world to this date that I found. There's no other Stephen Carl-Barron.
Should be fairly easy to find you.
Yeah. So, you know, and if you're ever in Barcelona, just look along the beach and you probably find me there as well. So
I look forward to come and seeing you on that beach.
You're invited and welcome.
Excellent stuff. Well, please God, that won't be too far away. Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time, telling us your story. Thank you that you survived so that you could share the story with us. And also just for those pointers you've given us to go and consider and go in action and go and put those into practice, you know, after this session today, and then make sure that you look at all the links that we'll share. Please subscribe to this video and share it with anybody that you feel that this resonates with. And, you know, if there's anybody else that you feel that you want to see on this channel, you want to hear from, a subject that you want to hear about, please, get in contact. Just search at M for Motivate, and you'll find me either on LinkedIn or any one of my other social media platforms. I look forward to speaking to you guys again in the future. Stephen, thank you very much again Much appreciated. Everybody else, go and have a great day.